Hello all, you're welcome to part 2 of this lecture on Introduction to Epidata. In part 1, I basically introduced you to the Epidata software, and now in part 2, I'm going to be showing you how to use Epidata to design an electronic questionnaire. I've actually made part 2 into 2 sub-parts. So there is part 2A, which is this part, and there's part 2B, which is to follow. So make sure to listen to part 2B after 2A. Now, I'm going to be using this questionnaire which I have made up for this demonstration. I have called it the TB Patient Survey Questionnaire. It's a short questionnaire with 10 questions. The first question says, are you receiving TB treatment at this facility? 0 for no, 1 for yes. The second question, 6, the TB register number of the patient. The third question is 6, the sex of the patient, 0 for female, 1 for male. The fourth question is age, which is a number. And the fifth question is 6, the date of birth of the patient, and that's date. The format is day, month, and year. As you have already seen, that when we design questionnaires like this, and also when we design electronic databases, different questions would be in different formats. The first question, for example, is a yes-no question. We've said 0 is the code for no, and 1 would be the code for yes. And the TB patient number, one may think that a field like that would be a number, but actually, if some health facility would capture it as a complete number, like digits. A patient number could be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But in other facilities, it could be AB-1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So different facilities may have different ways of giving numbers to patients. So for a question like that, it is better to make it a text field. A text field is also called a string field. It's an alphanumeric field. What does that mean? An alphanumeric fields are fields that can take both alphabets and numbers. In other words, they are not restrictive. And sex, again, is categorical, binary, as in 2 groups. 0 here stands for female and 1 stands for male. Age is a number. So some questions would be text, some would be numbers, and some would be date, like as you can see here. What is your date of birth? The format for that question is date, and we're using the day, month, year format. In this instance, we could use month, day, year format. Okay, so we're using day, month, year format. Yeah, you can go through the questionnaire to see the different questions in it. Now I will take you to Epidata. If you have already downloaded Epidata, as I showed you how to do in part 1, then you can now click on your Epidata manager. If you have not downloaded Epidata, I think you should pause at this stage now, at this juncture, and go and download Epidata. If you have downloaded Epidata, you would realize that Epidata has 3 modules. For this demonstration or for this section, we are going to be using the Epidata manager because that's the module that you need when you are designing an electronic questionnaire. So that module will be on your desktop if you've already downloaded Epidata, or you can go to the Start menu and type Epidata Manager. And if you've done that, this interface will be waiting for you. Now, this is the Epidata Manager interface. The latest version of Epidata is 4.6.0.2. It has 2 sets of menus. The first set of menus are the main menus that go from File through Edit to Help. And the second set of menus really define the workflow in Epidata. The second set of menus can all be found within the first and main set of menus. So the first menu is File. It is from here you open a new project if you haven't already created one. It is from here you open an existing project if you have already created one. There is even a submenu where you can access the different projects you have been working on. You wouldn't have this because you haven't created a project yet. In your case, we'll be defining a new project, which is what I'll be doing in this session. And under Edit, you'll find User Preferences. You can define your preferences. I invite you to fiddle with these menus to see what you can do with them. Under User Access, you can set password to determine the access of different people. There are different levels of access for different users. And of course, there are Documents, Tools, and Help. Under Help, you come across the tutorials for Epi Data. All right. Now, to define a new project, we can go to File, or we can just say Select Project. Under the second set of menus, Select Project. And in this instance, we are going to define a new project. Click on New Project, because to create an electronic questionnaire in Epidata, you create it within a project. Okay, so this is the project. Currently, it's untitled. We haven't given it a name. And there's this dialog box that has popped up, just trying to show you the relationship between, something we call relational databases. Don't worry about that. We are not doing that in this session. So click on Close Page. And now let's title the project. You can double click, or you can just type the title here. I'm going to call it TB Project 2020. And there are other information about this project we can add because more and more funders and other stakeholders in research require proper documentation of databases. There is abstract coverage, geographical coverage, the population, and description, ownership, funding, and the version of the project, and so on and so forth. All right, we are satisfied with the project name for now. In the exercise that I'll be giving to you as part of this course, you can play with some of those details. You can add more details to the project that you will be working on. Remember, I said to you that a data set is within a project, within a project or a database. A project is like a database. All right, why is it called a data set? So you can click on this. Why is it called a data set? I thought it's an electronic questionnaire we are designing. Yes, an electronic questionnaire is also called an electronic form. So an electronic questionnaire, basically every electronic questionnaire basically translates into a data set. So the questionnaire is what the data capturer sees. The data set is that matrix, that spreadsheet behind where the data goes. The data that are captured go into the data set. So it's more or less the same thing. The data set is the back end. The electronic questionnaire or the form is what we see is the front end. So data sets are within databases. So let's call this form, let's double click and change the name. Let's call it TB survey form. Okay. All right. So we'll call it TB survey form. And you can see that here a canvas is being opened for us. And here we can now start to define the different questions in our paper questionnaire. When we create an electronic questionnaire, we try to make it as it has to resemble the paper questionnaire as much as possible in the order, the terminologies, the way the questions have been phrased, so that the data capturers are not confused when they start to capture data. So now to create the different fields, a field is a question, right? Again, it's like I was drawing an analogy between a form and a data set. It's the same thing. The question is what the data collector asks, but when we come to designing questionnaires, we call them fields. But when it comes to data set, we call them variables. So question, field, variables, they're kind of saying more or less the same thing. So there are different types of fields here. From integer to float to string or text variables to memo to date and so on and heading and so on and so forth. From here to here, there are different types. If you click on this, there are also many other types, a few other types that are not listed here. So when you click on the pointer, you click on where you want to add the question, and then you go ahead and type your question. So that will essentially bring me to the end of part 2A, and then in part 2B, I will be creating the questionnaire that I've shown to you in the Microsoft Word. Okay, so let's stop here for now. Thank you.